sorry to drag you into this, but Henrik, it takes two to tango, so.
Oh, fuck you.
Welcome to the Flick Lab. I'm Karri. It's episode 151, Henrik.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's kind of logical in the sense that 151 follows 150.
Yeah, revelations. One revelation for tonight is that for the first time in a long time, I'm recording without my proper mic, so. And I'm recording from a sauna.
As a true Finn does. Absolutely everything is done in sauna. So you will get married, have a child, and also die in sauna, as it's tradition in Finland.
My sister is at the summer house, the main house here, and happens to have two very lovely kids. So I'm just thinking of the recording session, and you guys, you listeners out there, this might be an easier situation for you. It's all for you. And something that is all for you as well, Henrik, is Satantango for tonight, which is a 7-hour and 15-something-minute film from Hungary.
It's 7.5 hours. Goddamn. I have the weird inkling that this is some type of a like a late payback for whatever crimes I committed when I voiced out my thoughts about elephant sitting still.
Yeah, so here we are. One thing leads to another, and here's something more candy for Henrik, since Bela Tarr was the apparently main inspiration for Hubo's work and his Elephant Sitting Still, which is also
And I
a 4
kind of
hour.
can see the relation now, having seen this one.
I
There's a magical there's a magical place called editing booth, and neither one of them have ever heard of it.
I can see some relations, and I can also see that this is a bit of a different animal, not so much thematically as we will see. All right, first of all, or whatever is first here, first of all, let's say that this was a horrible idea.
Your ideas typically are. So no offense taken in my head.
Well, I have to say this is also my first time that I've watched probably a film of this magnitude in length, and must be one of the slowest films also out there that I've bothered to take a look at. I mean, as some of you may know, I do quite enjoy some of the slow cinema, but my God, here we have a film of that really doesn't care about the editing booth, as you said, Henrik. There's a lot of air there.
There's quite a lot of air. But yeah, those who are not familiar with it, Satantango is like the infamous movie as one of the longest movies in the existence, and also one of the slowest movies in the existence. It's like one of the, like, whenever the movie is being talked about, one of the, like, the key things that everybody always wants to point out is that is the length, 7.5 hours, and the fact that the movie in total has 151 cuts, which means that, average cut of the film runs for 2.5 minutes versus your traditional Hollywood film, which has a one cut of 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, what is it, like 156 cuts in the film? Shots in the film. And
yeah, I don't remember completely how many cuts it is, but it's 150 something. It's in that ballpark.
There are some longer films like that, over almost 10-hour film from the Philippines, Evolution of a Filipino Family, that I've also tried to push on Henrik's face on this podcast, but we didn't quite get there. So, is this the first time you delved into Bela Tarr's productions?
Yup. This is my first time with Satantango. This is my first time with Bela Tarr all together. I've heard of Tarr, never actually, but I haven't checked him out by myself. And I also have to come clean. I haven't read the book either, which the film itself is based on. I understood that you, Karri, you actually went on and read the original source material, the original novel.
I got my
I
hands on the novel, but I didn't read it. I didn't read it. Surprisingly enough, I guess I ran out of time or something. I don't know how these things go, but let's just say that just the film itself almost threatened the future of this podcast, could we say? Because goddamn, it takes some time to get through it, especially with the pacing and the pacing of the film and everything that you gotta take into account here, which kind of makes you sleep pretty fast.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like we were supposed to do this episode maybe I don't know 1 month ago, and here we still are trying to get this together, and here we finally are. I watched it in about 7 sittings.
And you are supposed to watch it on one sitting if you like to believe Bela Tarr himself. And that one sitting it's not supposed to be like it traditionally is whenever this one is being shown in movie theaters, where the theaters utilize the intermissions that this movie has. The traditional way I've heard how the movie plays out is that the first intermission is short one. It's 10 to 15 minutes so that you can get a bit of a fresh air. And the second intermission would be something like 45 minutes so that you can actually, grab a bite, have a few drinks, whatever you want. But the intermission time that the movie theaters like to give to the audiences is something from 50 minutes to 1 hour. Meaning that if you watch this on a theater, the entire experience is like 8.5 hours with intermissions. And Bela Tarr himself has said that he actually champions that people just watch the movie on go one sitting, no intermissions at all.
And maybe that's at least something that Bela Tarr has gotten right here. I mean, after all, if I would have to take 2 breaks in between this film, let alone 7 breaks, that would kind of make me want to go home in the middle of it.
Then again, at the same time, Bela Tarr's demand that you spend 7.5 hours sitting in your place in one chair, just glued to the screen. You don't get up, you don't flex, you don't drink, you don't eat, you don't piss, you don't do anything except just watch his masterpiece. It's also kind of hefty demand to put on the audiences.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So first time for me as well watching Bela Tarr, and must be the first Hungarian film that we have been watching it in here. Kind of a heavy thing to start off after the 150 celebration, but um, so there are a lot of similarities to Hubo. If there are some of the listeners out there that have gone through with us to the misery lane with Hubo in Elephant Sitting Still,
Or some Mint Volcano fans who still found our podcast.
most likely those. We have the gloomy colorscape, we have the behind the back cam, the camera following our characters for ages from behind them. But the camera does behave differently in the film. We are not so glued to the characters as in Hubo's piece. And there's a hell of a lot of variety in the camera angles in Bela Tarr's attempt.
I would almost make the contrary claim. I would say that Hubo actually had like more experimentation with his camera. With Bela Tarr and Satantango, it very much the camera. But the main revelation that Bela Tarr apparently had was that he went on and he bought himself a dolly, because that's the main camera movement that you get. There's some type of a dolly shot, dolly forward, dolly backwards, dolly sideways, and I don't like mean this to simply to cramp up on Bela Tarr or the film itself, but I would say, but I still claim that Elephant Sitting Still had more variety on its camera angles and its shots, and it took more risks with it, like the way how the camera was placed in Elephant.
Okay, that's a very interesting comment because all of Hubo's Elephant Sitting Still is really just the camera following intimately with the characters in these close-up shots, either from back or from front, or it's got some kind of a two-shot. But we have also kind of the I don't know, eccentric soundtrack. This is kind of a homemade sounding soundtrack or electronic soundtrack in Hubo's case, and here we have the accordion. So it's not any kind of an orchestra in the case of both movies, really, apart from some actual child orchestra in Hubo's film, but otherwise it's really this electronic and guitar pieces, simple music, let's say that. And same here. And any thoughts on the soundtrack, which drove me nuts?
I couldn't stand the goddamn tango scene, which is the moment that has actually most music and like most soundtrack in it, and it drove me absolutely to the balls.
Absolutely. And there's so little music to the film overall, and I don't know what it is about this. I forgot what's the name of the track, but kind of the main music piece that plays in some dramatic moments of the film, let's say, that repeats over and over. Let's call it the Satantango theme, and that also I don't know what is so goddamn annoying about this soundtrack, but ah, I would demand some variety. But this is the kind of case, Henrik, where apparently I learned after watching the film that the accordion is used in this way to give it some kind of a tango repetitiveness, which of course makes sense after you realize that it's because of that, but the music by itself doesn't really work for me in the movie at all.
Yeah, the constructual thing with the movie is supposed to be that, like you said, it follows kind of the dance steps of tango. So six forward, six backwards,
Yeah.
essentially. And the film is kind of supposed to mirror this in everything in its execution. That the music is supposed to. I don't know if they play tango music, if all the music in the soundtrack is tango or supposed to be tango, but that's kind of I understood that the tango theme is something that is supposed to run through the film in its pacing, in its sequence of events, and also in its soundscape.
And whatever is playing indeed during the dancing scene on repetition, that kind of makes me want to consider rat poison.
Yups. Perhaps we are just not tango persons.
No, I don't think so. Any differences to Hubo that you found?
I didn't even look them that hard. I
Yeah.
like I did remember that Bela Tarr was major influence on Hubo or for Hubo, but at the same time, like I've had to deal with Elephant twice. Second time being me just defending whatever I said in the original the Flick Lab episode. So now that we were like watching Satantango, I was like, I'm not gonna touch the Hubo wasp's nest at all.
I would even say that Hubo is action cinema compared to this. Like there are literal scenes where people are just eating. The camera may be rotating around them, dollying around them, but there's truly nothing going on during some of those moments. There's less natural light or flat light in Bela Tarr's movie. And I'm not to say that Satantango and Elephant Sitting Still are like that elephant would be directly influenced by Satantango only or anything like that, but we picked this film because it appears to be, it seems to be the most well known and definitely the most well known novel, at least of the Laszlo Krasznahorkai. And there's this non-linear storytelling that we didn't experience with Hubo as well, but that's all because of the tango element. So Laszlo and Bela Tarr, they collaborated since a long time ago, like since 1988 approximately, and for some reason there was a political environment that prevented Bela making the film already back in 1985 when the novel came out, but 9 years later he was able to do that. It's I'm not sure if it's related directly to the novel's material that they were not able to do. Satantango. Of course, Krasznahorkai himself has stated that his books really are not directly referring to any political environment events, but it's kind of easy to see some of those there.
It's kind of easy to see, yes. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to say exactly what truly is there. One of the
Exactly.
infuriating things with Satantango is the fact that it's so open ended in its metaphor, in its messaging, that you basically can kind of clue or see anything in it, and at the same time you can't actually be completely certain what truly is there.
That's also frustrating me. So if the creators themselves say that, well, really, it's not about the politics, so what is it about? What are we supposed to be seeing here? Just take it at face value, then.
Yeah, and that's also something that kind of repeatedly creeps up on all of the analysis that has been made about the film. And there are surprisingly few analyses that have been written or recorded in relation to Satantango. But one of the running themes I noticed was that basically everyone who provides his analysis always has a different take on what the film is about. To some, it's a condemnation of the state. To some, it's a condemnation of God and religion. To some, it's some type of a rural Hungary versus the more cosmopolitan Hungary. And I actually read it in a way that it's condemning the idea of a personal freedom, and it's celebrating the concepts of state and kind of spatial hierarchy, or like governmental systems. It's a type of a celebration of governance over the individual self.
Yeah, there could be a place on the absence of authority or the something about the end of communism and still celebrating or not celebrating at all the rule and authority. Something that I found really interesting, one of the video analysis was that one guy found that indeed when there's this the police captain is talking with Irimiás, and this scene is shot in the more standard way of, you know, shot, reverse shot. A conversation is taking place and the shots are taking kind of like having a normal pace, whereas the rest of the film doesn't have that. So you could take the argument that then now that the police chief is there, it's he's kind of the rule and authority, and therefore we're following the rules of filmmaking and we're having the normal structure here, but the film really wants to celebrate the breaking of those rules and doing what you really want to.
Yeah, I actually read the scene the same way. Like I too noticed that the fact that in the police station the film follows more traditional filmmaking rules. It has perhaps the most cuts that it has in any sequence in its runtime, and like you point out, it's shot reverse shot basically.
Yeah,
Instead of the what happens in for the rest of the film, which is that the dolly is going willy nilly all over the place while you hear pieces of conversation from here and there, sometimes following the two characters actually having the dialogue between them. And yeah, to me, also the police station, it was a moment where since we now are in an authoritarian space, police station, we also have some authority in the way how the film is being shot and in the art of filmmaking.
and indeed, the dialogue is talking about following the authority and the rules and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have Irimiás, and yeah, he's accomplice, and later there's a third party joining as well, basically, or it's kind of their errand boy, I would even say. But these two guys, Irimiás and his buddy, they are kind of they kind of are using their authority or their ability to apparently just lure the villagers into anything by just the mere power of words, suggested by the novel itself as well. And some people are even referring to these guys as kind of witches, which I did take kind of literally when starting the film. I believe I didn't pull that out of any imagination by myself, but I think they're referring to them as witches, and the way that they could be described as behaving during the film is some kind of a authority, some kind of a god. They can be also the Satans of the Satantango.
Yeah, that's once again the case where the open-ended nature makes it really hard to actually really say what Irimiás truly is about. And
Yeah,
the problem goes so far that it's even at the end of a film, it's hard to actually say what is the effect that Irimiás has on the villagers and the nature of that effect. Like when reading about Satantango, what usually people the way people usually paint Irimiás out is that at the end of the day, Irimiás is the bad guy of the film. He cons the innocent villagers and kind of leads them into a road of turmoil. Bad bad things will happen to the villagers thanks to Irimiás. But at the same time, I actually don't think like in my reading, Irimiás, yes, is a con man and he does con the villagers out of their money, but at the same time, there is a kind of a positive effect on what Irimiás does. Like even though it's all a con, at the end result still is that the villagers they leave the farm and they return back to the city, which are once again extremely open-ended movie. It's hard to say what was the director's intent here, and this is all according to my reading of the movie, but I took it that the movie actually agrees that yeah, that was actually a positive outcome. The villagers had to leave the farm and rejoin back to the civilized society, which was the more cosmopolitan Hungary.
yeah. So the story goes more or less so that the villagers own a collective farm. Not sure what the exact term was for that, but they own a farm together, and that is in financial turmoil where Irimias now steps in and at least apparently tries to help the villagers collectively, collects money from them, and then just disappears from the village for 18 months. There's a rumor floating around that Irimias might have been killed, but nope, that was the plan all along, to spread this false rumor. Then he one day comes back, and the kind of his plotting continues from that point forward. But all in all, it was quite hard to follow, especially with there's a lot of dialogue from the book told by this kind of a storyteller, which is then spoilers, supposed to be the doctor guy of the film, reading and writing the story as it goes along.
Yeah, I took it the way that Irimiás was never. He wasn't planning to return back to the farm, but he was forced to return to the farm by the police, who in the police station scene they like order Irimiás to work as a spy for them and to come up with a report on how things at the farm are going and is the farm succeeding or is it not.
Yeah, I took it first quite literally, indeed, the whole witch part, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for Irimiás to pop up to the village. It took his goddamn time, and then it just appears that he is just a regular con man, really. There was something that you mentioned that rang the bells again regarding something that the book is talking about, which kind of ties with the Hubo thing. This is a quote from the book. It's, "We think we're breaking free, but all we're doing is readjusting the locks. We're trapped." End quote. So, if you want that to put that into your reading of Elephant Sitting Still, oh boy, well, no hope for that story either.
No, well, and I still ride with that point. Like in my opinion, Elephant Sitting Still, like it ends fatalistically.
Yeah,
All the characters are trapped in Elephant. All the characters at the end they continue being trapped in the kind of meaningless cycle of events and existence, where there truly is not like any point. Like once they reach the elephant, all they're gonna see is one dumbass elephant, and that's it.
yeah. And the cycle repeats itself. They will find something similar that they already are trapped in. That could be a perfectly acceptable reading as well. Well, Irimiyashi is also talking about these explosives, but that explosives plot is also not going anywhere. I was at least waiting for something explosive to come in the end and kind of give some action by
Amen.
the end. Yeah, but no explosive ending.
Now I was certain that the Irimiás is gonna get the explosives, especially since the explosives are a repeated plot point.
Hmm.
It pop ups twice in very specific scenes. The scenes themselves are built specifically for Irimiás to talk about the explosives, and therefore I really did expect that Irimiás is gonna in the end Irimiás is gonna take the villagers' monies, and then he's
Hmm.
gonna use the explosives to get rid of the villagers in order to keep the money. And none of that happens.
Yeah,
Irimiás just kind of forgets the explosives.
yeah. He talks too much. He forgot the flow of time. But and also we have some cat killing in this film, and the UK film authorities didn't want to really proceed to give any kind of rating for this film because of this fact, and I can perfectly see why, because it looks kind of genuine. And yes, there is actual torture of the cat as well. Never mind the killing of the cat, but other than that,
Alleged torture and killing.
yeah. And if the cat was indeed killed, I would buy that.
I would too. With the whole cat killing thing, the movie has a sequence where a little girl starts to play with a cat, and as the play progresses, the girl gets more and more aggressive, more and more violent, to a point where she actually starts to torture the cat, and this all culminates into the act of the girl in the end feeding the cat rat poison, therefore killing the cat. And Bela Tarr has gone on record stating that there was a vet at the location of the shooting the entire time, to observing and supervising whatever was done with the cat. Basically, the whole air quotation marks play scene apparently was being practiced with the cat and with the girl, so that the cat would be okay with whatever was done to it. And the whole rat poison thing was it's supposed to be nothing more than, just a sedative that puts the cat to sleep, and that's it. However, when you look at the film, if you study the body language of the cat does not seem to be pleased at all, especially if you look at the cat's ears. It honestly to God, either the cat is like a fucking masterclass actor, and I hope the cat has a fantastic film career for it, or then the cat truly does not enjoy what is going on. Because by God, does the cat look like it looks like it feels threatened. It looks like the cat is pissed.
Absolutely.
And yeah. And then there's whole that putting the cat in the net moment, which honest to God just limits the cat's movement. Now it's being bound and trapped. And then we can get to the whole sedative thing, which yeah, granted, could be what they did. It's completely possible that they just sedated the cat. But the cat in the film, the goddamn time frame changes from night to day. Could be done perhaps in post editing. Could perhaps be done with clever time play, like really counting in like okay, the cat is gonna sleep for 3 hours, and we start shooting this scene at 7 a.m. when it's still dark, and by 9 a.m. it's going to be light, and it's gonna be black and white, and we are going to use I don't know, velvets and deados to create more light into to create the feeling that it's daytime, etc., etc., etc. Could be the case, but in the timeline of the movie, the time frame skips from night to day. That's also what it appears to be like, which means that they would have had to either sedate the cat repeatedly, at least twice, or give the cat some type of a super sedative that would keep the cat sedated for hours.
Hmm.
Or then they just killed the bloody thing, and it really is dead. Some have even pointed out that you can actually see the rigor mortis set into the bloody cat's carcass in between the shots. So who knows? Who knows?
Now, you would think that if they really killed the cat, the girl who played the role of the girl would remember such a heinous thing and would have said something to the media at some point. But
But then again, it's Hungary. Who knows?
there's surprising links in this movie in many directions. Well, some of them less surprising, but they link to some of the things that we have been discussing not so long ago. For example, Gus Van Sant mentions Bela Tarr as his huge inspiration in his later work, beginning with Jerry, which you mentioned also in relation to Hubo in that Wind Volcano that we did. In the 150th episode, we were talking about, well, Zach was talking about the movie Lamb, which is executive produced by Bela Tarr and directed by one of his former students called Valdimar Johansson. But so, how many sittings did you have watching the film?
I went through with the film in one sitting,
Holy man.
but I did utilize the intermissions.
Yeah, you
So
didn't have a piss bottle nearby or anything.
no, I took two 45-minute breaks with the film, but well, I like depending on how you count them, it's 1 to 3 sittings. But it wasn't an entire goddamn day that I had to give to the movie in order to actually be done with it and to see it in time for our recording session.
To be completely honest, it was a kind of a challenge to put something together regarding this film. It's very slow, it's very dry, and judging indeed from the makers, it's kind of a matter of fact, and nothing really to be read there too much, just to feel the misery of the characters and the lack of empathy for some characters that leads to deaths of at least one character and death of one cat. Yeah, and that's about it. What's the deep learnings that you got?
Since you mentioned the challenge of putting notes together for this episode, I had the exact same problem. But more interestingly, looking into the movie and looking into what others say about the movie, and once again, this is a point that ties extremely heavily into the film's running time. But I was surprised to notice that whenever people talk about Satantango, more often than not, they use the word challenge. They make statements like, "I wanted to challenge myself. I'm happy I took the challenge and saw the film. It's a challenging movie, etc., etc., etc." Which kind of also like it got me thinking exactly how successful is the movie then, or is it a
Mm.
good thing? The fame of Satantango, as already mentioned, it relies heavily on its running time. To the fact that this is a 7.5 hour film, which means that if you're going to watch it and you're not going to splice it into different days, like today I watch 2 hours and tomorrow I watch some more and the day after that I watch some more. If you're not going to watch it this way, we're going to watch it during one day, it's going to take like one work day worth of hours of your time. It's almost an 8 hour work day that you have to commit to watching the movie.
Yeah, sorry. The sad part maybe is that really I felt that the length didn't bring, in this case, really anything worthwhile to me. I think you could pack this movie into 2 hours, and I could be like, okay, that was okay.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. But people really like what like once again, this is one of those movies that are heavily regarded in the cinephile circles.
Yeah.
Bela Tarr is a master, is a genius. Tango is a masterpiece, and this is masterclass filmmaking, etc., etc., etc. But with this in mind, I was surprised to see, like I said, I was surprised to hear how many times the word challenge was being brought up whenever Tango was being referenced, to a point where it started to feel like that the reason why people really check out Tango is in order to challenge themselves, in order to kind of qualify for Satantango challenge, so that they can say that they did it, that they watched the movie. They spent 7.5 hours watching Hungarian art film. And now that they can go to all their cinephile friends and they'll and tell to them about their accomplishment and be like, yeah, I watched it and it was an absolute masterpiece. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. I was glued to the screen. I had a Zen experience. I found all these different sides of my own being when I was watching the movie. But once again, the core drive, based upon exactly how many times people use the word challenge, would appear to be that, people are not interested in the movie. Not really. They just want to see it so that they can say that they have seen it.
So, are you implying really that, obviously you are, but you are implying that people who haven't really watched long films would get such of an drive or a feeling of challenge of simply watching an 8 hour, 7 hour film, 7.5 hours, what have you, and then after accomplishing it, then because they did it, they can first of all say that they did it, and because they invested so much time on this, then they have to just tell themselves a story that, oh yeah, I really loved it.
I can't say for certain, but I have an inkling suspicion that that might actually be something that is going on behind the legacy of Satantango. This is a movie for cinephiles who
Yeah.
wanna be highly regarded as people who appreciate art and overall smart person people. They watch
Mm.
Hungarian art film instead of that marvelous shit that's in the multiplex. And I honestly, I started to suspect that one of the driving thing for cinephiles, for these people, perhaps even to you and me in preparation for the episode, could be the fact that the film is a goddamn 7.5 hours long. It lasts for fucking forever, so it's going to be an endurance test when you watch it. And after you see it, you can you earn the bragging rights. You can say that you did it. And because this is once again because it's Hungarian art film. Everybody loves it. Everybody thinks that this goddamn great masterpiece, and then you start to think that if I say that the movie kind of sucked, I'd look like a fucking dumbass. I'd be laughed
Okay.
at by other cinephiles. So then you join the band, and you two are like, "Oh my god, one of the greatest movies ever! I could watch this like 100 times. I wish I can revisit Satantango once a year."
I read that as well. That one critic who wrote that I could watch Satantango once a year with no issues. Okay. Do you think people are that shallow, or should, would it be fair to call them inexperienced and shallow in a way that I experienced this, therefore I will tell you that this is great art. And honestly, not to brag, but I think we've watched better films. But of course, yeah, it's based on a novel. I haven't read the novel. There's a lot of this narration that I have no fucking clue what is going on in that narration. And but overall, if I'm left with these characters, this story, and not really that much even political depth to it, I'm left with the kind of expression of filth and darkness and lack of empathy, and just those themes that we have already gone through in a more shorter, better, more palatable form. 7.5 hours for that, just watching people eat and staring at things, and this kind of a very theatrical uh, way of structuring those shots that kind of takes me out. Okay, another staring scene. What are they staring at? And even these shots where the camera is on a dolly, and we're seeing people fight or cows moving, and I guess you're supposed to kind of see these people and their value as they really are when you're given 8.5 minutes to stare at moose walking in the morning in the cow dung. I mean, and didn't work for me.
Yeah, I'm not as tough on the movie. Honest to God, like I know once again I've said bunch of mean things about Satantango, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay. It was passable. It was way too fucking long.
Yeah,
Like I agree with you 100%. I do think that there's like material for 2 hour film, but but even with a runtime, I didn't see that the special value in all these hours that the movie took. But I also didn't hate it. I thought it was okay, but and I don't wanna like judge or condemn people who have watched Satantango, people who defend Satantango, or all the people who state how this is a great movie and Bela Tarr, etc., etc. I don't wanna make the statement, the ironclad statement, that they are shallow people or that they are stupid. I don't know. Honest to God, I couldn't make that judgment because I don't know really what these people felt.
yeah, it's
But
always a personal experience. Who knows what it's really based on? Yeah.
yeah, but I have to state that but the word challenge in people's talks it came up so many times that I honest to God it's hard to actually not to start to suspect that something might be going on, that the movie is being seen and watched, for the sake of the challenge and for the bragging rights. It wouldn't even be like the first piece of art that has gone through this treatment. There's also the Finnish book in the halls of Alastaro, Alastaron saleissa in Finland, which also much like Satantango, it's a novel that basically goes through an extremely short time period. What was it, like a couple of hours? And it's like several hundred pages long, which means that the book itself is an extremely detailed telling what happens in the pace of a few hours. And it's not really like, it's not an action book, it's not a thriller book. There is no like any kind of a mystery plot going on, which it's just, the whole book is about, telling extremely detailed what type of a room this is and how person walks across the room and what he thinks and when does he rub his belly button, etc., etc., etc. The whole book is about is like this. And that book, like the people who have read Alastair Salaissa, some of them, honest to God, have a T-shirt that states that they have read the bloody book. They are bragging with the act that they have passed the challenge. They have read the book. And so when this happens with art. Another good example of this is like the disturbing movies Iceberg, which is like a collection of scat porn and fake snuff films, Mondo documentaries, animal torture, etc., etc., etc. And the whole point of going through that bloody iceberg also is to have some type of a extreme movie bragging rights, to be able to say that, yeah, I watched Guso Milk on Necrophiles. There is no story in like 90% of the movies in the iceberg have no story. There is no characters. There's nothing. It's just basically it's just like gruesome things and nauseating things being shown to you. So the main reason to actually go through the iceberg is to say you did it. So when this happens with literature, when this happens with extreme movies, it happens with art together. People consume art in order to be able to say that they did it. So I kind of don't see how Bela Tarr all of a sudden would automatically be above all of this. How Satantango would be a movie that nobody ever watches simply for the sake of doing it. Be able to say that you did it. And especially when people constantly state that they took on a challenge. They challenge themselves. It kind of starts to smell fishy and it starts to smell like it's hard not to suspect these people and then, start to think that perhaps the only reason they watched the movie was simply to say that they did it.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong here. Honest to God, like I said, I don't want to pass the judgment, but it's kind of like it kind of feels like that when you think about it.
Talking of just jumping all over the place, but I believe I didn't show this quote yet. So, quote, the emerging social order that leads the villagers to seek value outside all they're ever known, end quote. Once again, this part really resonates with the whole elephant theme, where they're trying to find outside value outside of their own hometown. They are looking for that hope because of that change in their environment, that bleakness. So yeah, that's about it.
You're making the case that we actually managed to go through 7.5 hour movie in less than 1 hour of podcast time.
I guess so, believe it or not. Yeah.
I guess Bela Tarr could take some notes.
Yeah, Bela Tarr and Hubo, just a little bit more about that. Maybe we have already mentioned that before, but they became friends. They became friends, and if I'm not mistaken, Hubo joined one of those filmmaking events that Hubo was linked to in one way or another, and he made a short film, which was probably one of them that we watched, the Well one. What's the name again?
Yeah, I can't remember the name.
But in any case, I think it's that, and if not, then not. But he did make a short film, and Hubo signed one of his books to Bela Tarr, something like to my godfather. So it was that kind of a connection. And Bela Tarr did come to some of the showings of Elephant Sitting Still to give a short speech before the movie. saying all kinds of very direct things like, this kind of fucking thing can't happen ever again. We must do something about people who are considering suicide as an option. But yeah. But that was probably one of the most direct translations of a novel into a film. As it happens, it seems that they didn't miss any parts really, that all of the chapters of the book are in the film, and essentially nothing was left out. So there you go. If you're really into pure translation of novels into cinema, I think you found your thing. But
Yeah,
even then, yeah,
the story behind the film is that Bela Tarr read Laszlo's book like whole years before the film was made, and like immediately was to Laszlo, contacted him and stated that I want to make film Satantango, and Laszlo was like, you don't really want to do that. The book is unfilmable.
yeah.
You can't make a movie out of it. And Bela Tarr just kept bringing the thing up with Laszlo over time repeatedly. The two were friends, so there were many instances where Bela Tarr could mention Satantango and wanting to make a film out of it. So it wasn't like a heavy bombardment. Laszlo's like message inbox was not crammed by Bela Tarr in over one weekend. But eventually Laszlo gives in and agrees that okay, yeah, fine, try to make a movie out of my weird book. And in order to pull it off, I heard that Laszlo would actually take like heavy presence on the film set.
Yeah, they wrote the screenplay together, right?
Yeah, they wrote a screenplay, and I've understood that he was also overseeing the shoot of the film. I'm hesitant to say that he was like the uncredited second director of the movie, but going through the background stories, that's kind of the impression I got, that Laszlo almost worked as a companion director to Bela.
And they've collaborated in several projects, and also in the last feature film that Bela Tarr directed for 2011.
Yeah, the touring horse.
Absolutely. What was the scene that you remember the most, or what made the biggest effect, if any? For me, it might be the doctor and him telling the woman off that I don't need you today, or maybe even ever, and just the doctor's adventures. That was I kind of felt for the poor guy, and at the same time, he reminded me of one of the people that I personally assisted, somebody who couldn't leave his home and perhaps was in a similar state, but really couldn't move out. So he was very aggressive. That's all.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing with all the characters of the film is that they are all dumbasses.
Yeah.
Every single villager is a goddamn dumbass. I hate to I hate to say this, because poor innocent farmers, etc., etc., and obviously they have health problems, etc., etc., but still, bunch of goddamn dumbasses. That the barkeep and the doctor perhaps are the most logical persons in the film, not in counting Irimiás, who is not truly one of the villagers, seeing how he has been away for such a long time and presumed dead. But yeah, the doctor and the barkeep, perhaps the most relatable people in this film, the most logical ones. I'm also kind of hesitant to give this uh, a praise to the doctor, because him kind of staying in the village is also, it's largely do with his health problems, and by the end, when he barricades himself inside his own house, he too is a goddamn dumbass. So I would say the barkeep is like, or the landlord, or whatever his function is in the film, like the most logical, most relatable character of the movie.
No, I don't know about that. The bar owner, first of all, has the most annoying wall clock in the world. da, dum da, dum da, dum
Yeah,
da.
that is true.
Oh gosh.
And of course, at the end of depending on what your reading of the film is, the barkeep might be one of the characters who end up with the shitty ending. Like this relies heavily on exactly how you actually like. What is your take on the end result of Irimiás' actions? Like the fact that Irimiás takes the villagers out of the village or the farm and brings them to the city. Is it a positive or is it a negative thing? If it's if you read that that's a negative, well, in that case, the people living the farm, they are condemned.
Irimiás, yeah.
Yeah, but if you read it as a positive, like there will be a positive result for them all leaving the farm. In that case, they kind of get saved. They are being brought back into the civilization. They get new jobs, and the farm is kind of behind them. They got out of the farm, and now they have a chance of new life in suburban areas of Hungary, in the town where they are being left off. And in that case, the barkeep is the one who ends up with the shitty ending because he gets stuck, is still stuck in the farm. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like very much. It's a question of how you read the ending, like who is smart and who ends up with happy ending. But still, I would say the villagers out, the barkeep not in counting, goddamn brain defect.
Yeah. What about the dog? I read it in the way that the villagers all leave and the dog stays in the city, in the town, goddamn barricades himself with no sunlight left and is the teller of the story. And the story ends with him dying all alone.
Yeah, the dog most definitely is done for at the end of the film. He is going to die.
Mm. And that's the price you pay if you don't follow a totalitarian, sociopathic witchcraft person who doesn't care about your feelings and leads you out of your hometown. Righto.
That's the price you pay if you don't leave your goddamn flat.
Mm.
Get out of your apartment once. Exercise.
Well, he did for booze.
He did for booze. And he almost died because he's
Yeah.
so out of touch with the concept of fresh air. Because of fresh air poisoning. Also, there was rain, so he almost drowned because he had forgotten what rain is.
Didn't even take the offer of the prostitute. I was kind of destitute for him to take it.
He's a suicidal person who does everything in his capacity in order to somehow die.
Yeah, no joy. Yeah. But it was a joy listening to his umphs and ahs because of the lack of exercise. Every single movement's like,
It reminds everybody that it's good idea to exercise every now and then.
Even if you're 75 or what.
Yeah. Everybody should just watch Satantango, take a still image of the doctor when like there's like a full body shot of him. Make a poster of that shot. The wall.
And check off to it.
and then contact Bela Tarr and tell him all about the experience.
Well, Bela Tarr at least has had an effect on us on some way. At least we got annoyed, we got frustrated, we got tired. I guess that's the mark of an art. It left a mark on us, at least a bit.
I don't know. I don't know. I've been like annoyed, tired, exhausted by a movie previously. One such film that comes to mind is Transformers: The Last Night. Incomprehensible piece of garbage, and I hated every fucking minute of it.
I remember already like 10 years ago when I was in Oulu in a theater, and my boyfriend at the time, ex-boyfriend indeed, always had the shittiest ideas of movies. And we went to watch Transformer, whatever it was, and I so desperately wanted to leave the theater in the middle of it, but relationships and all.
Yeah. That all being said, the first Transformers movie, not movies. The first Transformers movie, surprisingly feministic piece of film.
Oh,
Have to confess, not a good movie, mind you, not a good movie by any stretch of imagination, but surprisingly feministic.
all right. Would we like to transform the part of the podcast into quickies?
Why not? Let's do the quickies quicker than Bela Tarr can make a movie.
Think we can do that.
The special mention to an actor goes to, if you actually have one in mind.
Dr. Peter Berling. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if the dog has a name in the film.
Yeah. But I think he had one of the most natural performances there. Some of them are a little over the top, perhaps because of the scenes requiring them to, but yeah. Or we could just give it to the wall clock.
Well, that was also a strong performance.
Yeah.
Also, the cat, in the offshoot chance that Bela Tarr did not kill it.
Quite right.
I kind of am hesitant to actually give special mentions here, but
Yeah.
there were some good, honest to God, good performances. I give myself to, and I'm gonna butcher the name once again, but Mihaly Vik, who played Irimiás.
And who also played accordion? He did the soundtrack.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna take that one back.
What's next?
What resonated with you the most or the least?
It started kind of intriguingly with the cows moving on the lawn. So I'll just give it to the cows moving on the lawn. Well, okay, if I would have to say something more serious, and honestly, it's a lot of blank, this film, for me. I've got not much to say. We've dealt with the themes, and I thought it was just way too long for this experience to be externalized or shown to the audience.
Yeah, I kind of have had the similar type of experience. Like I must once again, I must state out, I didn't hate the movie, but at the same time, and this is of course it's by the design, but this is a movie where you can't actually keep focused. You can't stay focused on the film. It's like strategically designed the way that your mind will drift off, which will lead
Yeah,
into a situation where there's a lot of blank when you start to think about it.
yeah, that may be one of the reasons why it's so hard to connect or say something worthwhile. Your mind is wandering out so often, and just watching this film in 7 pieces, yeah, you forget things and you just lose interest.
Yeah, and that's kind of the effect of a slow cinema. What is the subgenre that this film belongs to?
Yeah, what's
So
next?
in one adjective, how would you describe the film?
Gray.
I'm gonna say long.
Yeah.
I was thinking about finding a better adjective like meditative or something else. Fuck it, it's so long.
Not only gray because it's shot in black and white, but yeah, gray.
But to get into the more difficult, the more complex questions.
Oh my.
Would you ever consider watching the movie again?
No, I would not. It's too
Yeah,
long.
I have kind of the similar opinion for the exact same goddamn reason. It is too long.
Yeah, and the
Do you
story
think
content wise, I wouldn't be interested. Okay, next.
Do you think that the film has any staying power or legacy?
Yeah, it will have that legacy with film nerds. But I don't know, should I say fortunately? You don't find it so often because of the length of the film, so there are those very few moments where you might catch it in a cinema somewhere. Probably not in Finland.
Most likely not in Finland. This is like all the screenings I found for the movie, they are those small independent movie theaters that run special matinee screenings.
Yeah.
So I don't know, perhaps Niagara in Tampere, and not even them. But I do
Okay.
agree with you that the film's legacy will exist through the film nerds.
Maybe in some small room that is part of the Lapland University campus, there will be a possibility in some film class to watch it.
I would say no film class ever will attempt to watch this one. But the main question of tonight, would you recommend the movie?
No, because of the aforementioned reasons. Too long. The story didn't really struck with me, and yeah.
Yeah, I have to be on similar vein with you. I would not recommend the movie. It's not because I hated it. Once again, I thought it was okay, and it's not a terrible movie. I'm not banning Satantango, but at the same time, as it's already been pointed out, it's 7.5 hours. Like the time commitment that is demanded from you is kind of crazy. And if I would ever actually say that, yeah, you should check out Satantango, and the person would ask me, okay, why? I would kind of throw a blank because I don't. It's not a bad movie per se, but I don't find the reason. I don't find the justification to recommend anyone to actually spend the 7.5 hours with this movie. Even more so if you utilize, the intermissions and take breaks during the film. So because of that, it's perfectly. It's like I said, it's okay. It's okay movie. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's okay. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, at the same time, I kind of recognize some biases here that, if you read an average book, then it probably takes you several hours to go through that. So in that vein, you might propose the question, should movies take 8 hours normally? And well, we have seen this trend in cinema that movies are now longer than they used to be, at least the blockbusters somehow are around the 2.5 hours, over 3 hours mark. Of course, we have this kind of an unwritten rule that movies should be around 2 hours, 3 hours max. And maybe they don't need to be that. It's just that Satantango is kind of dull. And watching people, again, eat for 8 hours, some part of the film, I just didn't get this feeling that while you're watching these people eat, that you get something really extra about their nature or their kind of being or their value as human beings or learning something new about them. So yeah, no.
Yeah, precisely. Like I stated this in when we were guesting at Mint Volcano. The long running time itself, it's not automatically like a fault. It's not a mistake. It's on itself. Like movie isn't bad necessarily because it's extremely long. It depends on what you do with the length and how you utilize it. How much meaning you get from it, and does it like feel that the movie has to be this long? There simply is no other way to get tell this story or give you this experience except in the amount of hours that the movie takes. And with Satantango, honestly, I do get part of the idea. I get part of the you are supposed to get tired and you are supposed to get infuriated and you are supposed to like your mind is supposed to wander off, etc., while you're watching the film. I get it, but I also feel honestly believe that you can achieve the similar effect in a much shorter runtime. Satantango is a 7.5 hour film that does not absolutely have to be 7.5 hours.
Yeah, amen to that.
So, to close off today's episode, in one sentence, or complete the sentence, you really know you're watching Satantango when?
I want to try this first.
You really know you are watching Satantango when bunch of cows wandering aimlessly is like the most action you get.
You really know you're watching Satantango when you're plowing through 7.5 hours of film footage and watch it in 7 pieces, falling asleep constantly. It could be that I was running out of air a bit when I was on my bed trying to watch this. And oh, by the way, Bela Tarr, I'm sorry for this. You will probably hate me saying this, but yeah, because of my available options, I was watching the entire movie from my phone screen. So,
oh my god!
So that's the respect of cinema here.
You're gonna be on some kill lists after that one. Bela Tarr is gonna phone some Hungarian hitman after you.
I've got limited amount of electricity around here, so screen sizes matter. Oh, well, I guess that's the meat of it for this week.
I guess that is. And you know, if somebody in the audience, if our obnoxious film buff who most definitely has seen Satantango and really loves the movie, you know, by all means, tell us all about it in our
We'd really
Facebook
love
page
to know.
or in YouTube. We really would love to hear about you.
Actually, more than ever, I'd love to know what is making this your favorite films list. Why is it making your favorite films list? Seriously, I'm curious.
Yeah. Come to our social media and recommend us Satantango.
Well, sorry to drag you into this, but Henrik, it takes two to tango. So what can I say?
Fuck you.
But yeah, by God's mercy, we have done. This was fun, more fun than actually viewing the film. Okay, enough bashing. But if you love the film, hey, more power to you.
More power to you.
See you in a fortnight.
Until then.
Joo, en saa tunnaria pyöreitä niin. Tilu lilu 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 lilu. Welcome to the Flick Lab.